Yo, yo, yo. What's up, guys? This is Marquise. Peace. First and foremost, peace. Um, Today I wanted to talk about socially adjusting as a non-traditional guy. Um, Bear with me. This is my first time doing a video, so this is kind of weird. You sit in a room and you're talking to yourself, and whatever. It's strange. Um, so anyway, um, I know that when we think about this experience in terms of being a guy, sometimes we have the tendency to forget about some of the other changes that happen that we ultimately have to adjust to. I know a lot of us really only consider the physical stuff um, when we're in the beginning stages, and I think for the most part, it's probably like the only thing that's on your mind. Um, but Socially adapting is one of those things where it's a given. It's something that you almost have to do, um, and it's pretty important. It's definitely important to the guy experience, to the whole bonding process, um, and it's kind of hard to get around. I guess if you're the kind of guy that really doesn't care to hang out with traditional males, cisgender traditional males, then it's probably not that big of a deal. It's probably not something that you're gonna have to really largely concern yourself with. However, for those of us uh, that do and you want to be a part of like the whole, male process, there are some things that you really should be aware of, and conversation is definitely one of those things. Um, and even for those of you who actually really don't care to, at some point in life, you will have to be out in the world, and you'll be at a bar or, sports bar or whatever, and some guy will just start to make conversation, and you'll find yourself in that experience. Um, but I think it is important to be aware of making that adjustment and what that adjustment is going to be like. Um, and when I'm talking about traditional cisgender guys, I'm speaking about heterosexual guys. I'm not talking about gay men. I think the experience with gay men, whether they're very effeminate or jocks, I think for the most part it doesn't really matter, um, because they're not traditional guys, and there are certain things that they just don't really care about. Even if they are jocks, even if they are the kind of guy that enjoys the really extreme, like heavy uh, male bonding experience, masculine sort of experience, 9 times out of 10, it's not really going to make much of a difference. They're not really caught up into those things in that way. But I think with heterosexual men, it is one of those things where you'll just have to deal. Um, the traditional male experience, when we're talking about conversation, includes discussions around sex, sports, technology, and women, um, which women kind of go hand in hand with sex. Um, so yeah, I mean, those are conversations that you will find yourself being limited to when you're talking about hanging out with heterosexual guys, and it's something that you have to adjust to. I would imagine for most of us, uh, whether you passed or you didn't pass prior to the idea of being, I guess, a female makes it easier in that experience, because guys don't really, put a lot of pressure on uh, females that way. And if you passed, um, most of us who passed, we probably didn't look like adult males. We probably looked like 16 and 17-year-old boys. So for the most part, there's not really too much pressure there either, especially when people think you're a kid. So, but they'll probably still talk to you about sports, whatever. Uh, but so for the most part, yeah, those are conversations that you're definitely gonna have. For myself, 80% of the guys that I know that are non-traditional guys are guys that are heterosexual and guys that enjoy those kinds of conversations. And you'll find yourself in a position where you really have to stay abreast and aware of those topics of discussion, um, especially especially with sports. Sports is one of those things where, like, every guy talks about sports. Almost every guy talks about sports, and it's something that you gotta adjust to. For me, the sports conversation is pretty natural. I love basketball. Um, it's obviously my favorite sport. I could watch it all day. I could play it via video game all day. Um, so for me, that comes pretty naturally, and that's not really a problem. Football and baseball, those are things that I really have to brush up on. So I follow ESPN, via web, um, via application on my phone. I'm always pretty aware of like stats, scores, that kind of stuff. Technology as well too. Technology is one of those things that I recently started to get into, um, because it is a pretty heavy conversational piece amongst men. Guys love gadgets; they're into that kind of stuff, and it's something that like you you might want to allow yourself to become familiar with. Um, and don't get me wrong, I don't want guys to feel like this is an added pressure or stress. I mean, if you're the kind of guy that's just really not into that kind of stuff, and your friend base doesn't include like beefheads, jarheads, jocks, that kind of stuff, like it's really not gonna matter so much. But if you find yourself out in the world, socially in a space with a large number of guys, this is conversation that you might want to allow yourself to become a little bit more familiar with. Unfortunately, most guys that are non-traditional, that are heterosexual, are pretty judgmental, and so it's one of those things where it sucks, but it is a reality. So if you're that guy that's just like not really into that kind of stuff, you'll be perceived as weird and awkward. um, and in some cases it may actually end up being somewhat of a dangerous situation. So it's silly enough because it's just one of those things where you're like, it's really not that big of a deal, but to some guys it is that big of a deal. And so just to allow yourself to kind of maneuver a little bit more easily within the experience, it is a good idea to like to just know, to just kind of be aware. um so yeah, I mean, I wanted to put it out there because again, I feel like a lot of guys transition, and the only thing that they're really focused about is like the physical stuff, the physical changes, which I think is okay. I think that's cool, because it's exciting. It's exciting and it's new and it's the uncharted, and you're ready for all like this new stuff to happen, and that's great. Um, but the reality, you know, eventually hits, and it eventually has to set in that like the way you're perceived in the world is going to be different. There's going to be quite an adjustment that you have to make, and it's probably a good idea to be aware of that stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, questions, feedback, curiosities, whatever. If you guys want, you're more than welcome to hit me up. Again, this is my first video, so this is kind of strange, a little. But yeah, hit me up. All right, I'm out. Peace.